Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this fascinating journey into the world of rare coins where tiny details, minting quirks, and unassuming pieces of metal can become treasures worth life-changing fortunes. And in this video we are diving deep into one of the most intriguing stories in modern numismatics. The legendary 2002 1-cent coin that is said to be worth as much as $8 million because of its errors, mistakes, and remarkable features that make it a centerpiece of discussion among collectors, investors, and enthusiasts. So sit back and let us take you through every possible detail, error variety, minting anomaly, and historical curiosity surrounding this coin, because what may look like an ordinary Lincoln cent can in fact turn into a jaw-dropping fortune once the mysteries of its production and survival are unraveled. And when we think about the 2002 penny, we first recall the classic Lincoln Memorial reverse design that was used until 2008 and the obverse featuring the portrait of Abraham Lincoln introduced in 1909, but as with many years of production, not every strike was perfect, and in fact 2002 became a year in which certain flawed examples slipped out of the mint's presses, creating rarities so scarce that they defy ordinary expectations. And before we get into the list of specific errors, we need to consider how coins are actually made at the mint, because it is in the process of blank preparation, planchet creation, striking, and die alignment that errors arise, and each of these errors has the potential to multiply the value of a penny from just 1 cent to thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars depending on rarity, demand, and condition. And when the 2002 pennies were struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, the majority of coins were perfectly ordinary copper-plated zinc cents with a mintage running into the billions, but it is within those billions that rare treasures were born, and collectors know that when billions of coins are struck, even the smallest misstep in machinery can produce one-of-a-kind outcomes, and that is why the 2002 1 cent has varieties that make headlines in auction houses when they are discovered, because certain examples carry double dies where the details of Lincoln's face, inscriptions like, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," appear doubled, tripled, or distorted due to die misalignment, and these dramatic double die obverse errors can skyrocket values because they are easily recognizable and highly collectible, and some of the most spectacular examples show strong doubling in the date 2002 or the letters of Liberty, and when such a coin is certified by grading services, its value can jump from cents to hundreds of thousands, and in the case of the ultra-rare 2002 error penny we are discussing, the doubling was combined with other mistakes such as off-center strikes, broad strikes, or even transitional planchets. And transitional planchets are especially mind-blowing because they involve a coin being struck on a metal composition intended for another denomination or another year. So imagine a 2002 penny accidentally struck on a leftover bronze planchet from pre-1982 instead of the usual copper-plated zinc, or even more dramatic, a penny struck on a foreign planchet such as one intended for another country's coinage, and there are reports of 2002 cents struck on dime planchets, meaning the penny design appears on a smaller, thinner piece of metal, often missing parts of the design because the planchet is undersized, and these wrong planchet errors are extraordinarily rare and incredibly valuable, and when you add the possibility of multiple errors stacking together, such as a 2002 penny that is not only on the wrong planchet but also has a double die and was struck off-center, the uniqueness of that coin makes it literally one-of-a-kind, and in the world of collecting one-of-a-kind means sky-high prices at auction, sometimes reaching into the millions, and the fabled 2002 1 cent worth $8 million is believed to have emerged exactly in such a way, by being a rare combination of planchet, die, and striking errors that simply cannot be replicated, making it the crown jewel for collectors who chase the ultimate prize. And what makes this story even more compelling is the psychology of coin collecting itself, where people are fascinated by imperfections and anomalies because they tell a story of human error, machine failure, and the unpredictable chaos of production. And these tiny mistakes captured forever in metal become a tangible piece of history, a frozen moment that links chance with value. And for the 2002 penny there are also examples of die cracks, die breaks known as cuds, where a piece of the die breaks off and leaves a raised blob of metal on the coin. And these cuds can range from small to massive, sometimes covering entire sections of the design, and dramatic cuds are heavily sought after by error collectors, with their values skyrocketing depending on size and location. And in some cases a large cud combined with other errors can create an instantly legendary coin. And aside from cuds, we also have off-center strikes where the design is struck partially on the coin and partially off, resulting in a crescent-shaped blank area that collectors find highly desirable, especially if the date 2002 is still visible, because having a visible date is critical for collectors to identify and value the coin, and when you mix in broad strikes where the coin expands beyond its normal collar creating a stretched, flat, and unusual shape, you get even more types of errors that can turn ordinary coins into extraordinary rarities. And another fascinating error is multiple strikes, where the coin is struck more than once by the dies, creating overlapping designs, distorted lettering, or ghost-like images of Lincoln's portrait, and dramatic multiple strike errors are often headline makers because of their visual appeal and undeniable uniqueness, and when one of these multiple struck coins happens to be from 2002, collectors take notice because they combine both modernity and rarity. And then we must consider mule errors, where a coin is struck with mismatched dies such as a penny obverse with a dime reverse or other incorrect pairing. And mule errors are among the rarest and most valuable in the entire hobby, often fetching 6 or 7 figures at auction, and while official reports of a 2002 penny mule error are scarce, even the possibility fuels speculation and adds to the mystique of the year, and when collectors speculate, the market drives prices upward, sometimes to astonishing levels, and that is how we reach the legendary valuation of $8 million for a 2002 1 cent, because when you combine myth, rarity, condition, and collector demand, suddenly the unimaginable becomes reality, and in the realm of numismatics we have repeatedly seen coins sell for millions, such as the 1794 flowing hair dollar, the 1933 double eagle, and the 1943 copper penny, so it is not impossible to imagine a 2002 penny with a perfect storm of errors achieving a sale of $8 million if the right buyer meets the right coin. And beyond errors we also need to think about condition and grading, because coin values are heavily dependent on preservation, and a coin graded mint state 67, 68, or 69 by PCGS or NGC can command astronomical prices compared to the same error in worn condition. So imagine the ultimate 2002 error penny not only being a rare mistake but also being in flawless mint condition with brilliant luster and no wear. That combination pushes it into the stratosphere of value. And we cannot forget provenance either, because when a coin comes with a famous discovery story, celebrity ownership, or an epic auction appearance, its value multiplies due to historical significance, and so the 2002 penny worth $8 million is more than just a piece of copper-plated zinc. It is a story, a legend, a piece of American history bound with human error and the passion of collectors, and when people hear about such coins, they are drawn to search through their own pocket change, coin jars, and collections hoping to stumble upon hidden treasure, and that is part of the magic of numismatics, the thrill of the hunt, the possibility that any one of us might unknowingly possess a fortune in a simple penny. And so the tale of the 2002 1 cent valued at $8 million serves not only as a case study in minting errors and collector demand but also as a beacon of hope and excitement for coin enthusiasts worldwide, reminding us that sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest surprises, and that in every ordinary pocket change lies the chance of discovering the extraordinary. And as we continue exploring the fascinating varieties of the 2002 penny, we must mention struck-through errors, where foreign objects like grease, thread, or wire get caught between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving behind impressions, voids, or unusual textures, and these struck-through errors are especially prized when they are dramatic and visible. Last 1983 1 cent coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this exciting journey into the fascinating and mysterious world of coin collecting, where ordinary-looking coins can hide extraordinary stories. And today we will be diving into one of the most legendary modern rarities in U.S. coinage history, the 1983 1 cent coin that has shocked the collecting community and the investing world alike, with tales of its staggering value reaching up to $7 million because of the strange errors, oddities, and unique mistakes that make it not just a simple Lincoln cent but a piece of history, a rarity beyond imagination, and a treasure that inspires collectors to check every penny they come across. So sit back and allow me to take you deep into the heart of why the 1983 1 cent has become so famous, how errors happen in coin production, what specific mistakes make it so valuable, and what possibilities exist for variants that could make one tiny copper-plated zinc disc worth more than a luxury mansion. Because when you hear about this story you will realize that the world of numismatics is not just about money but about human curiosity, history, rarity, and chance colliding in the most spectacular way. and to begin with let us take a look at the historical context of the 1983 penny, because 1983 was a crucial year in the history of the Lincoln cent as it marked the full transition away from copper coins that ended in 1982 when the U.S. Mint changed the composition of the cent from 95% copper and 5% zinc to a core of 97.5% zinc with just a thin copper plating, a decision made to save costs as the value of copper rose beyond the face value of the penny, and this change meant that 1983 was the first full year where all circulating cents were intended to be struck on the new zinc planchets. But as in any large-scale industrial transition, mistakes happened, and mistakes at the mint are what collectors dream about, because when billions of coins are struck, even a few errors slipping through create incredible rarities, and in 1983 one of the most famous possibilities was transitional errors where coins intended to be struck on zinc planchets were accidentally struck on leftover copper planchets from 1982, creating a coin that should not exist and yet does. And these copper 1983 pennies are among the holy grails of modern numismatics, commanding staggering prices in the hundreds of thousands of dollars whenever they appear, and in the case of the legendary example that reached $7 million in value, we are dealing with a coin that goes even further, because not only was it struck on the wrong planchet but it also carried dramatic errors like double dies and striking anomalies that made it unique and essentially priceless. And to understand how such a coin could exist, we need to step into the minting process where blanks are prepared, fed into presses, struck by obverse and reverse dies, ejected, and bagged, and in this mechanical dance of precision and repetition sometimes mistakes happen, sometimes planchets from the wrong composition or wrong denomination slip into the hoppers, sometimes dies are misaligned or damaged, sometimes grease or debris clogs the design, sometimes the coin is struck off-center, and when these rare mistakes combine they create spectacular coins that collectors will spend fortunes to obtain. And for the 1983 penny, the most famous error variety is the 1983 double die reverse, where the inscriptions such as 1 cent and United States of America on the Lincoln Memorial reverse appear doubled, and this dramatic doubling is visible even to the naked eye and highly prized, with values in mint state condition reaching tens of thousands of dollars. But imagine combining that double die reverse with a transitional error on a copper planchet and then perhaps with additional striking mistakes such as off-center striking or multiple strikes, and suddenly you have a coin that is unique, a coin that cannot be duplicated, a coin whose rarity and desirability push its price into the millions, and the reported $7 million value of a unique 1983 penny comes precisely from this confluence of errors, condition, and collector demand. Because in numismatics, when a coin is one of a kind and highly publicized, it can achieve astronomical prices, just as we have seen with other famous rarities like the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle, the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, or the 1943 copper penny. And speaking of the 1943 copper penny, we must remember that just like the 1983 transitional error, it too was created when planchets of the wrong composition were left over from a previous year, proving that transitional errors can and do become some of the most valuable coins in the world. And beyond planchet errors, the 1983 cent also offers possibilities of off-center strikes where the design is struck partly on the coin and partly off, creating a crescent-shaped blank area. And these are valuable especially if the date 1983 remains visible, and then there are broad strikes where the coin expands beyond the collar creating a flat stretched appearance, and multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once resulting in overlapping designs and ghost-like images of Lincoln's portrait or the Lincoln Memorial, and each of these error types adds to the desirability and uniqueness of a coin. And when you imagine one example combining several such errors, the rarity escalates to unimaginable levels. And that is why the legend of a $7,001,983 penny exists, because within billions of coins struck only one or two may carry the perfect storm of mistakes and yet survive in extraordinary condition, and condition is another crucial factor because coin values rise exponentially with higher grades, and a coin certified mint state 67, 68, or 69 with brilliant luster and flawless surfaces is far more valuable than the same error coin in circulated or damaged condition, and so if the ultimate 1983 penny was discovered in pristine uncirculated state, it would naturally become a centerpiece of any collection and demand an astronomical sum at auction. And then we must consider die cracks and cuts, those raised areas of metal caused by die breakage, which collectors love for their dramatic appearance. And in 1983 there are known examples with massive cuts on the obverse or reverse, making them rare and desirable, and when such a cut appears alongside a double die or transitional error, the coin becomes not just rare but almost mythical. And then there are struck-through errors where foreign material like grease, wire, or cloth gets between the die and planchet during striking, leaving behind unusual impressions or voids, and dramatic struck-throughs are always valuable. And again, when combined with other mistakes, they can create unique coins that capture the imagination of collectors. And beyond the errors themselves, we must understand the psychology of collecting, where people are drawn to the idea of owning something no one else has, something that tells a story of human error, historical context, and chance. And the 1983 penny embodies all of this because it represents not only the first full year of the zinc cent era but also the lingering echoes of the copper past, the mistakes of machinery, the quirks of production, and the endless possibilities of discovery. And when collectors hear that a single 1983 penny has sold for $7 million, it fuels the dream that perhaps in their own pocket change lies a fortune. And this dream is what keeps numismatics alive and thriving, because the possibility of finding a life-changing coin drives people to search, collect, and cherish these small pieces of metal. And that is why the 1983 penny worth $7 million has become legendary. And to expand further, let us consider mule errors, where a coin is struck with mismatched dies, such as a penny obverse paired with a dime reverse. And though extremely rare, mule errors have occurred in U.S. coinage, and if a mule involving a 1983 cent were ever discovered, it would instantly become one of the most valuable coins in existence, likely exceeding even $7 million. And so the potential of the 1983 penny continues to excite the imagination. And then there is the role of provenance, because when a coin is discovered, documented, sold at major auctions, and passes through famous collections, its story grows, and so does its value. Because collectors are not only buying a piece of metal but also a story, a piece of history, a narrative of rarity. And in the case of the ultimate 1983 penny, the narrative is compelling because it involves the dramatic transition from copper to zinc, the existence of transitional errors, the fame of the double die reverse, the allure of multiple errors combined, and the fascination of a coin surviving in pristine condition. And when all of these elements come together, it creates the perfect recipe for astronomical value. And so as we reflect on the 1983 penny, we realize that its $7 million legend is not just about money but about the human fascination with rarity, the pursuit of perfection,